Hi, Patricia.
Hi,
You. Hi.
got some rainbows going on. I got a stained glass on my window,
Oh,
showing some rainbows around, which is cool.
oh, good. That's perfect. That's excellent. How is the snow up there?
So beautiful.
Awesome. Great. Well, I thought we would just get started by having you share with us where you're from and how you originally came to be in Maine.
I'm from Montreal, and I came to Maine. I moved out when I was like 18 or 19. I don't know if it was just me, but maybe a lot of people from Montreal sort of were California dreaming. And so I moved to, when I was like 18 or 19, out to California to make my way as a newspaper reporter. And I met my ex in California when I was just turned 27, and he had a place in Maine, so that's what moved me to Maine.
And so, did you pursue newspaper reporting? Did you stop doing that work at that point?
Yeah, because I was totally into my career, and I was so excited to be a newspaper reporter. I remember a friend bought me one of those old timey like reporter hats, and I was so excited about it. And I was winning awards for it was feature writing, statewide awards in California. But I just met my ex. I got swept off my feet, and he lived out east. So basically, I had to make the choice if I was going to be with him, to give up everything. That's what he was asking, for me to give up everything to move back east with him, and then just be on his schedule, basically. So it meant giving up not only my job, but my career. And I did that.
So
For
then
love,
you,
out of love, right? It was just, yeah.
but then you were in Maine for how many years together,
So
raising your family?
I left after 29 years of marriage. So, uh, and we had lived in Maine for 3 years before we had started having kids. So, yeah,
It's a long time.
a long time. Yeah, in Camden. So it's a small community, but
Mm.
it's a small community. Came quite close to this community, which was in the end worked out very well for me.
Mm. And you had a Jewish upbringing in Montreal, is that right?
Well, I don't know if I would say a Jewish upbringing. I am Jewish, but my mother raised a single mother, and we didn't observe the holidays. I think we went to at my aunt's house. I remember like hiding the matzah. I think it was Passover. We partook of some of the traditions, but we didn't observe the holidays as a family. Since we're talking about observing holidays, should I just stay on that a little bit more, just to explain?
If you want to, sure. Yeah.
Well, I guess it is jumping ahead, but basically, we had been married a very short time. And I remember we were on a flight, and I remember mentioning something about, maybe wanting to go to a synagogue in Rockland, just because just to explore that and see what, just to explore that. And he just blew up so much over that. And that was what was happening, is there would just be these blow ups that were so unreasonable. But I didn't, at the time, I knew it was unreasonable because it made no sense. But it was just about trying to get him back to normal again, and then trying to avoid the next blow up. But he really blew up over this, and he got so angry at just the mention of it. And he sort of framed it, I think we had kids at that time, so he framed it as he would be the outsider because I was Jewish, and I would be introducing a tradition to my children, and then he'd be on the outs. So I was really careful about that. And then my friend, I had a friend from childhood who is Orthodox, and when my baby was born, Jackie, she sent a dreidel as a little gift. And again, he blew up. He was so angry, and I actually mailed it back to her, which is so strange, rather than just thank her, but I think he even made me do that, just mail it back and say, please don't send us anything like that. We're not, introducing that to our kids, something like that. And so we had nothing to do with anything to do with being Jewish at all through the whole time my kids were growing up. And what was so amazing was a few years ago, my daughter let me know that she was interested in exploring that, and she was reading up on it, and she wanted to observe some of the Jewish holidays, and she's married to a man who's not Jewish. And so when I went to visit her over this past holidays, I actually, for the first time, I observed Hanukkah in my life, because I hadn't done it growing up. And she brought out a menorah, and then we also went to a village park in Plattsburgh where she lives, and there was a rabbi there, and there was a huge menorah, and he was talking about the history of Israel and everything, and it was just so beautiful. My grandkids and we all did it together. So
Amazing. I know you've talked about the fact that this kind of experience of being forcibly separated from your tradition is actually not entirely uncommon in domestic violence. As you talk to people in other faith traditions too about that, right?
yeah, I have a WERU radio show that's also a podcast, WERU FM community radio. And my last episode was talking to two women. One is from Orthodox family. She's actually the sister of my friend that I was just telling about. And she talked about being married to a cantor and the horrible abuse that he put her through, and how he was working for synagogues and the rabbis didn't want to know about it. They saw what was going on with her, but they didn't talk about it at all. And how her mother was always saying, there was an expression, but you just basically, this is your bed, you made it, you lie on it, you just do the best you can. And that's the message she got from everybody. And then there were two women in this interview, because the other one is Jennifer from South Portland, and she was raised in a very strict Christian religious community. And the same thing with her. She met this guy when she was very young, and very strict, much stricter than she was. And to the outside, he was this, perfect, wonderful person, but he was so controlling and so physically violent and horrible in every way. But again, the message from her church was, you got to make this work. So it just showed how religion had an effect. The other thing about religion is Mary Lou Smith, who's very important in our group. She's 82. She's the 82-year-old who were 18 to 81 survivors, 41 of us. And she said that her being raised as a Catholic primed her for domestic abuse, because the message from the Catholic Church was, listen to your elders, don't question anything. And yeah, religion plays an important part, but the part that we could talk about here is the control of domestic abuse. So when you're with a partner who is abusive, then he's basically trying to deny everything that makes you. And because it's all about him, and he doesn't want, he only wants it to be about him. So therefore you end up becoming a shell of yourself. You're so careful to avoid any confrontation and to keep the peace that you just get smaller and smaller. And that's what happened to me. I just got smaller and smaller and smaller, and everything about me, every inclination, this is over 3 decades, and people grow, right? Like, could you imagine, you imagine from 27 to 55, I was growing, like, as far as different things I wanted to do, different, things I observed, but it was all stymied and staunched. And, I got environmental leanings, and I didn't like the idea that I thought plastic bags were wasteful. But I go into a store, and I remember saying to the checking out and just saying, I'll just carry the things out. And he got so angry at that. Like, just because I was just making up, I don't know why, like, just the idea that I had to be different and just not take a bag. So just even that, like, I couldn't even express myself, like, environmentally, like, I think bags are a waste. I only have 3 items. I'm going to carry them out. So next time I just let them put it in a bag. It's just one example.
But these are like such small choices that are scrutinized and put through this incredible process. I think a lot of times people really do consider only physical violence when they're reflecting on domestic violence, and yet we know it's manifested in so many ways around power and control, like what you just described. What do you think helps people break out of those assumptions to understand better what it feels like and what they might when they might see it too?
But I could, before I say that, I think we're looking at it very close up. So the little small things, but then the big things too. Like I remember at one point I wanted to go back to school. I just thought I was a photographer, but I thought I'd like to be a social worker. Like that would really interest me, but I just knew I couldn't do it because I had to remain very flexible for his schedule because I had to go on the road with him all the time. So I knew that I could never say I'm taking like a few months or a year or something and not going on the road with you. That was impossible. And then he just would mock, like he would mock any idea of wanting to do anything really. I had to just work around a schedule. That's why I was a children's photographer, so I could just book some children's photography sessions, mostly in the summer when we were home anyway. So yeah, so it affected my choice of career and everything really, because I had to watch what I said, I had to watch what I did, I couldn't hang out with people that he didn't like, and he didn't like a lot of people, even to the point where I live in a small town in Camden, and we'd go for a walk together in the morning. And I'd keep my head down because if someone said hello to me and I, God forbid, had an exchange of a few words, he'd be furious. Mm. And so I was just like, but that's like in a small town, like it's impossible. So you the stress of just taking this walk and just praying that the people I go by don't recognize me or don't say hello. And it was constant. It was just constant every minute, every day for 29 years. So then you asked the question of, and could you just remind me that question again that you asked?
Yeah, just thinking about, power and control manifest themselves in lots of different ways. And often people can assume if there isn't physical violence, that domestic violence isn't in play, but we know that that's not the case. And there's a lot of really insidious examples like the ones that you've talked about that really inhibit the life of a person to express themselves or to experience normal things. As you think about that assumption that physical violence has to come into play, I think your project helps to give us good examples from people's lives about how much more complex the power and control dynamics are. How do people know what they're seeing? Like, what are some of the things that you look for?
On our website, we have examples of these power and control wheels that the women in our group, many of the 41, have filled out. And you'll see the pattern, and it is an absolute pattern. And the other thing that's interesting is I will talk to somebody because I have, in my podcast or whatever way, and they'll give me the details of their relationship, the abusive relationship. And sometimes we'll be in it for like a conversation, like 40 minutes, we're having a conversation. And then it's like one of the most horrific things I've ever heard. And then I'll be like, there was nothing physical here, was there? You have to just makes you sort of realize it's surprising because what someone could do to you mentally, psychologically, how they can control and really rob you of, just so that you're absolutely living in fear and that they rob you of your free will. So the things to look for are basically, are you afraid? Like, are you ever afraid? Like, you should never be afraid, right? And that's interesting. Like, I remember when I was just getting out of my situation and I was talking to a friend and she's got her husband's really nice. And I was like, so he never grabs you? Like he'll never grab your arm? And she said, no. I said, he never, like he'll never grab, I couldn't even get my head around that. Cause to me, it was just like so normalized. So I guess that's the number one thing is, are you afraid? Are you afraid of saying something? Are you afraid of doing something? Are you afraid? And the other thing would be, love should feel good, right? So obviously in a relationship, there's ups and downs. Sometimes you're irritated with the person, but how does it feel? Like, does it feel good? Like if you're distraught, if you're upset, if you're nervous, if you're, that's not good. And then the control thing, like, do you have free will? Like, are you doing what you want to do? Or is this person controlling people you hang out with, how you dress, how, what you do with your time. Like there's compromise obviously in marriage, but there's control is a whole other thing.
So your relationship ended in a really public way, I know, with a lot of press and a lot of process, but you turned that into this really incredible organization that's focused on bringing the voices of survivors to the fore and really situating this work in the experience of people who have gone through it. Can you talk about the genesis of that transition? What happens that led you to Finding Our Voices?
I mean, I was in it for 29 years, but then I had previous abusive relationships starting from high school, and I never knew the term domestic abuse. I never had that vocabulary. And so when the headlines came out about me being in this small town, I guess the first thing that happened was I went to get my hair cut, and my hairdresser, Kate, who I'd been going to for quite a lot of years, she just put her hand on my arm, and she, when I sat in the chair, and she just said, "I've been there." And then she told me that she had been married. Our boys, her son and my daughter were in school together. And when that boy was a baby, she lived on an island with him. She had been lured, she had met this guy, this fisherman, he'd brought them to Idaho, and she was not allowed to leave the island with her baby ever. And he was extremely abusive to her. And it took she told me this while I was sitting in the chair. She said it took 4 different state and federal agencies to get her off that island while he was out fishing. So anyway, I had never known that about her. She never knew, and she never knew that about me. And this happened more and more. And so I'm a photojournalist, and I just felt this is a big story because I just didn't know about this, and it's everywhere. And more and more people, my neighbor who's an architect told me when she was in Bowdoin, her boyfriend, a poet, had tried to strangle her. It just was everywhere. So I just started with this photo exhibit, which was Valentine's Day 3 years ago in the Camden Public Library, of 14 mostly local women, their portraits. There was a phone number next to the portrait that you could call up with your cell phone, and you could hear audio of the woman telling. So you're looking at the portrait, and the woman in your cell phone is telling you their story. And those stories are on our website. And then there were these power and control wheels that the women customized. It was interesting because at first, because I had this exhibit in mind. And then when I was first thinking of the exhibit, I thought, well, we're going to have everybody's protection from abuse orders. Do you know what a protection from abuse order is? I've been a lawyer.
Some people might not. No,
Yeah.
But some people might not. So that's important to share too.
So basically it's something that you can go to the court and you could get something called a protection from abuse order, where the abuser is not allowed to be anywhere near you for a period of time. So I thought because I had one, and I thought, and the interesting thing is I had a statement that I filled out to get one for the judge. So I thought, that's what I'll do. I'll ask every woman to give me the statement that they had filled out for the protection from abuse order, and that's what we'll use, for documentation of the abuse. But come to find out, of the 42 women right now that are on our project, maybe 3 have come to the attention of the courts, because women domestic abuse is not reported. And that's why whenever I see statistics about domestic abuse, I don't pay any attention to them. Even ones that are alarming. No. Women do not report domestic abuse. I was in it 29 years. I never reported it. So couldn't go with the protection from abuse orders as far as documentation, although that is my documentation in my part of the exhibit. It was. But we had these power and control wheels that I give to the women, and usually they fill them out. When you go to a domestic abuse agency, the advocate will sit there and show it to you, and you'll fill it out. So I just want to put it way out there. No more behind closed doors. When the woman that wants to do it, when she wants to find her voice and about this, hey, let's just get it right out there. Everyone's got to see this. And what's really exciting, it just happened today actually, is there's a high school. We're getting our posters into high schools now. And I was talking to one of the social workers at one of the high schools in Southern Maine. I won't say which one yet. And anyway, we're going to have this whole test pilot project around bringing power and control wheels to the high school so that every high school student knows the power and control wheel. Isn't that exciting?
Amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I think you talk about having relationships earlier in your life, right? That may
Yeah.
have prefigured this marriage. Yeah, so often people don't have the tools that they need when they're first engaging in romantic relationships to understand these dynamics. So, and I've seen you, I mean, over time, you've had more and more really high profile women participate and share their stories and their voices. And most recently, I know Governor Janet Mills was featured on one of your banners as well. In terms of when we think about stigma, this seems like such an effective way to break this down and say this happens to everyone, and here are some examples. And I also think it's so powerful to have people be able to speak in their own voices about something that's impacted their ability to have a voice. But as you think about this in Maine specifically, I know you said you don't pay attention to the numbers as much as demographics, but we understand. I mean, I think Maine wants to be known as a friendly place and very relationship based, and a lot of small towns. But the numbers suggest that domestic violence is a really significant issue in this state. And so, can you talk about sort of that disconnect between what's going on and the perception?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers. The statistic that I do believe is that, and that is a fact, is that half of all homicides in Maine, year after year, for 20 years or more, have been stemmed from domestic violence. Well, and talking about Maine, okay, a friendly place. So there's two things about that. That can work against us because, this whole good old boy thing, right? Like, or you have a small town, everyone loves like Charlie or whatever his name is, even if they know. I just wrote this column for our local paper. This guy was picked up for it was his third ex-girlfriend, third time. So repeat offender, third time. He was on probation for the second time when he put his hands around the neck of the third woman. He ended up spending 1 week in jail. And this is the victim cooperated with the district attorney. She was willing to testify. And she wrote this long victim impact statement about what it had done to her. 1 week in jail. There's this other woman I know in Ellsworth, and I know multiple victims of the same guy. He's got 20 charges against him for domestic violence. I think most or all of them felonies. He's out on the streets. There's not even a court date set. It's been 2 years. Could you imagine this woman and her young daughter and this guy's out on the streets, the guy that almost killed both of them, and he's on charges for kidnapping and all kinds of things. And he's on the streets. So I don't know what's going on. There's an absolute disconnect with Maine being, I love Maine. I mean, I absolutely love this state. It's a beautiful state. The people are wonderful. But there's a disconnect here because there's so many people going through this and they're just not taking it seriously in the courts.
Are you, as you think about, I know there's lots of different ways that you'll have impact through this project, but is that one of the goals, is to change the dynamic in the court system?
Oh yeah, no question about it. I mean, the more women that step up with us and tell us their stories, and it doesn't mean they have to be on a banner, but just some background, because when we get a bill together, which we want to do, and then for the, in front of the legislature, we're going to have a lot of women there testifying. And we're also just accumulating information from hearing about, because I hear from every day, women reach out to me from all over Maine because they see our banners and our bookmarks and news stories and everything. And we welcome them into our sisterhood and in all different ways.
Are you working within, so there's lots of existing kind of social work frameworks that are out there. I know, do you work with organizations on the ground in different parts of the state? Or are you really looking to start something that's as much of a movement as it is a specific?
Well, I feel we are a movement because women, survivor voices need to be out on the table in every aspect. And so many of us wanted to have our voices out and we're never given a chance. We feel that professionals need to hear from the survivors and not filtered through necessarily a domestic abuse agency who, might, put it out their way, with their messaging. That, let's just hear right from the woman with Survivor Speaks panels and all different kinds of ways, so that we can just get our voices out to, district attorneys, police, social workers, lawyers, judges, anyone who's dealing with this at all. But we
And
do
Patricia,
collaborate. Saying that, I just want to say that we do collaborate with many different agencies. For instance, we're getting our into the immigrant, refugee population, and we're working with um, the Immigrant Welcome Center and with a Woman for Rural Health, and we've talked about working with you and the Knox County Homeless Coalition, and we have many different agencies that we do collaborate with.
and you talked a little bit about the importance for you of recapturing your Jewish identity and with your daughter and through your family, which is so lovely. I know you have an event coming up with Adas Yeshurun Synagogue at the end of March. Can you talk about the impact of that, how that matters for you?
Yeah, that's really exciting. And that's going to be March 24th.
Great.
And it'll be my daughter and I, a conversation with us. And the way we thought we would do this is it was my daughter's idea. I like this idea. We would each come up with a few questions that we want to ask the other, and we'll do it that way. And then we'll just open it up, for questions and comments and conversation with people listening. And we're going to make this, it's going to be online, and probably because of COVID, and we're going to make it available to every synagogue in Maine. And I love the fact that it's with my daughter because she found her voice not that long ago. She wrote an article for Rolling Stone about the abuse that she had gone through with her father. And that was huge for her. That was really scary. And she's free now, because she came out about it. She's not silent any longer. And also it's just been an amazing experience. Yeah. For both of us to just talk. And that's all about breaking the cycle is so important. So just talking about, so I hear her and she hears me, and talking is the key, is really the key to heal, because domestic abuse, if it comes from a father, let's say, like what it does to the mother-child relationship is huge, or sometimes it comes from the mother, whatever, but the children are very badly affected. And so is the relationship between the child and the parent, who are the victims.
It's an incredible story of healing. And we're so grateful for the work that you're doing. If someone hears their own story in what you've shared, where can they go for support?
Well, they can come to findingourvoices.net. On our website, we have the 41 women, and as you mentioned, Janet T. Mills, their governor now included, on the website with their quotes, and many of the women have audio. You could hear their stories, and you connect with us because we have, as I mentioned, many ways of the sister support. And I would encourage everyone to call the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence, the hotline, because I don't think people understand that that's not just for crisis. The advocates are there 24/7, and you can always talk, even if it happened a long time ago, just just to talk about it with someone who understands, someone who believes you, is huge.
Amazing. And then if people are interested in getting involved to support Finding Our Voices, what are ways that you're looking for people to step forward?
We'd love anybody who could help us get it out in their town. Just get in touch, tell Liz, let's have a conversation. Where do you live? And we'll get the posters to you, get them out in your town. That's how we're going to do this. That's how we're getting them. We have them in 100 schools so far. This woman, Kathy, who joined our board, got the spreadsheet. We got like 15 volunteers step up from all over the state, and it's volunteer powered. And some women are survivors, some aren't, but that's how we're doing it. That's how we're going to get out more and more. So we could use anybody's help. I could also use help, with organizing. We can use help with grant writing. We could use help with graphics, like anything that anybody's skill, we could absolutely use it, because there's a lot of work to do. We're doing it, and there's a lot more to do. And come on board, because we're all about, getting this into the light, and it's a beautiful thing.
It's so beautiful, Patricia. Thank you for your time and for sharing this project with us. I really look forward to the dialogue with you and your daughter too. I think it's a wonderful way to give everyone some insight into what you've been through, and hopefully make us all more aware of how common this is in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of J Talks. If you have any questions or comments, please visit our Facebook page at Maine Jewish or visit us at mainjewish.org. J Talks is produced by Molly Kern Rolls and edited by Trevor Geiger for the Jewish Community Alliance of Southern Maine. Our theme music is by Sarah Halley Richardson. We'll be back with more episodes soon.